Alright YouTube, it's time for the Occult, video 104, internal or external, specifically on the source of esoteric force, or the occult current in general, you could say. This has been a debate that's raged within humanity for thousands of years. Is it some innate force within man that allows magic to occur, that allows the occult to exist, or is it an external force? Or, in my opinion, why not both? Why can't we say that there are things that are external to our own physical composition? Whether you secularize it and you say, well, it's forces or concepts that we don't fully understand. Or is it something that's solely internal? For instance, you'd look at the psychic arts or something, telekinesis. Typically that's ascribed to the internal. You would look at something like prayer. It's externalized. You're attempting to contact some sort of divine or otherworldly entity to draw power, to draw inspiration, whatever it happens to be, to connect with some sort of demon. Demon in the authentic Greek meaning of daimon, which is intelligence or something of that nature. When you're looking at the occult, when you're looking at how magic is specifically practiced according to different schools, there's generally a disagreement over the two. For instance, in the more traditional sense of, let's say, Renaissance-style occultism, as it delves into summoning demons or performing certain rites, typically you're invoking some sort of entity, whether it's Christianized, paganized, whatever it happens to be, calling upon aid. You'd think of, for instance, contacting a force for battle. Oh, well, Lord, whatever, the frog god or the cat god or something, please let us be successful in battle. Then you would look at perhaps a berserker or something like that around the same time period, and you'd say there's also an internal practice there, the consumption of hallucinogens, potentially, although it's still up in the air as to whether that's more fact or more fiction. Or the practice of sort of focusing on rage, driving yourself into a frothing madness to go and chop down your enemies, which is apparently part of historical fact. You have both the internal and external. Now, I wrote a work, and I'm modernizing it now with a new format. I'm going to re-release it fairly soon, this year at some point, called Categorizing the Occult Magical Traditions and Their Meanings. And in this work, I attempt to delineate which practices are more internalized, which are more externalized. For instance, you'd think of the difference between the postmodern system of using as much as a demonic seal on a little slip of paper, meditating upon it, and trying to charge it yourself. That's more of an internalized practice. But if you were using that same symbol 100 years ago, it would be almost completely externalized. In some of the rites that you'd find maybe in a Mather's work or something, what you're doing is drawing the symbol on the floor or whatever within a circle and then calling upon Elohim, Agla, all these different names of the generally Hebraic deity, although not always. I think that the two, personally, can coexist. And of course, I've got to expound upon that within the work when I edit it as well, re-editing my own work for once. Because originally the classification system relegated both essentially to either external or internal. However, there's also crossover there. I think that's fairly clear to be seen, and I didn't, I think, expound quite as much upon that when I wrote it in the first place several years ago. We would think of things like meditation. Meditation is a deep going inward, but at the same time, within the sort of schools and groups that originally thought up the concept of meditation as being spiritually important, there's also an external aspect. There is an externalized cosmic force. Oddly enough, the concept within some of the Eastern paths of essentially becoming non-dual or even non-being essentially transcend the internal-external sort of dichotomy, and what you're seeking to do is bring the two essentially together. You're seeking to expand outwards and draw the outside inwards in a way, to become part of one, I guess, divine whole. Now, I may not personally endorse that. It sounds like it would be rather unpleasant to me to become essentially part of a non-being system. That being said, though, the tradition is there. It's thousands of years old. It's not some new wave hokum that's peddled by a bunch of crystal gazers. It's an authentic spiritual tradition that goes back to antiquity. You'd think of perhaps the concept within Hinduism, and this is something I may add into the work. Hinduism is essentially a monotheism. That is, there is one creative force. This creative force then partitioned itself to experience things, to let loose all of its different aspects in a more physical manner. Essentially, you've got this one Brahma breathing creation, and then all of these offshoots of this actual Godhead. Technically, it's a monotheism. It partitions into a polytheism because all of these different beings become individual personalities. They're no longer fully connected with one another. They're partially connected, but not fully. And so, in a way, you could say within that specific pantheon, you have the internal and the external. They're all part of one whole, but they've become external to one another through that process. It's almost a little bit similar in the sinister tradition of sort of the play acting, or the building a mythology and making it real, willing it into existence. Because an individual can do that too. An individual can alter their personality. If they've become skilled enough, they're capable of taking on multiple roles, expanding their personality. They almost are externalizing themselves further than just being one simple being. It's actually a very interesting topic, the interplay between an external creative or divine or occult force or energy or current or intelligence, consciousness, whatever you happen to term it. And there are many, many different terms for this basic concept, as opposed to the internal, which is the mind as penultimate in many cases. Science would be an example of this in many ways. Man is not seeking to become more like some external thing. It's actually seeking to create, the internal awareness is used to overlap onto the external. You're attempting to manipulate and change the world. Mankind increasingly, over time with technology, in a more secular sense, has sought to take the internal, his own dreams, his own reality that he wants to see, and project it upon the world through various means. The idea of transforming society, the idea of terraforming the land, the idea of building great buildings are all external acts from the internal. Then there's the external to the internal. The funny part is this. Here's the rather amusing side of it. When earlier, like classical cultures, or Renaissance cultures or whatever, when they regarded a deity, what did they immediately do? They immediately took their own ethos behind what they thought the external was, their god or whatever force they happened to be venerating at the time. They sought to replicate their own thoughts, claiming them to be external, claiming, well, we're inspired by a deity. In reality, though, you look at all the churches and minarets and so forth, they're an externalization not of a god, but of mankind. Within architecture, within engineering, within every aspect of their design. They then go into this location, they internalize themselves within some religious or spiritual body, and then further seek to emulate the external. It can get a little bit convoluted, but the basic premise essentially incorporates all aspects of the occult, all aspects of spirituality. Because what's being done is, in any given practice, in any given rite, regarding any subject within the occult at large, you've either got the presence of the external or the internal, or the fusion of the two. Very interesting topic. It's one that I've written about, and I'm going to write more about it. The work will be considerably longer when it's reformatted, let's just say that. That's about all. Peace out.